right, so I am going to go ahead and get started. I'm sure we'll have others join as the call moves on. So just a quick bit of housekeeping. Abby Browning, who is with California Emergency Management, will be joining us, but she is going to have to join us a few minutes late because, as you all know, they are being impacted once again with another atmospheric river, and she has a briefing at the top of this hour. And so as soon as she's able to break away, she will be joining us. So I just want to thank you for joining us today. My name is Julie Roberts. I'm founder, president, and CEO of the Private Sector Emergency Management Association. It's exciting to see everyone on the call today for our second monthly webinar. Before we move into our panel of women leaders in emergency management, I would like to take a moment to give a little history of how PSEMA was created. In September of 2021, Hurricane Ida made landfall in Louisiana before tracking northeast, leaving devastation in the path. Throughout the response, I heard question after question from the private sector looking for information on how to aid the business community to restore operations. With limitations on government response for the private sector and limited information available, it occurred to me that it was time for an organization that is founded by, funded by, and managed by the private sector. In December of 2021, PSEMA was launched as the only national association for private sector businesses focused on preparing for disasters, recovering from a crisis, and building a more resilient business community. Over the next couple of months, the founders group of 9 representing small businesses, corporations, nonprofits, and individuals with a passion for disaster management was named. In line with the concept of an organization funded by the private sector, I am thankful to the group of founding companies that joined PSEMA over the last year. As of today, the PSEMA founding companies include OnStar, HEB, Disaster Recovery Services, JetBlue, Esri, and most recently, CNA. PSEMA membership is open to any individual in emergency management, small businesses, corporations, associations, academic institutions, government partners, and organizations that have an interest in building more resilient business communities. Member benefits include access to a network of businesses who understand the unique challenges of crisis management, as well as experts in disaster preparedness and recovery. Members will have an opportunity for ongoing education and training to better equip your businesses to handle future disruptions and assistance through collaboration with partners when a disaster happens. Last year, the network activated in support of Hurricane Ian with daily coordination calls and a daily situational report with resources for the business community. Through a business-to-business approach, problems were identified and solutions were found on the daily calls. From identifying a resource for JetBlue to secure fuel for their employees returning to the airport and locating a resource to provide oxygen to employees' father, the daily calls provided attendees ways to solve one-off issues without expending valuable resources needed elsewhere. You're invited to join us for a virtual networking call on Thursday, March 30th, 2023. We will be sending out a notice through our distribution list, and in April for the monthly webinar discussion which will be on supply chain. And if you are attending the National Hurricane Conference in April in New Orleans, please join us for a discussion on the role of the private sector during disasters. On Monday, many of us watched as Michelle Yeoh won the Oscar for leading actress in Everywhere, Everything, All the Time. Sorry, I may have butchered that, I apologize. She released a new op-ed yesterday, which I thought was very appropriate for our discussion today. It's called "The Crisis That Changed My Life, 8 Years Ago Keeps Happening." And it's about how disasters disproportionately affect women and girls. So if you're interested in joining PSEMA, please reach out through the PSEMA.org or at the email membership@PSEMA.org. So here's a graphic that we've started to use. Remember, disasters happen, be resilient. So like a rubber band, when a crisis happens, you can snap back faster. Now, I would like to turn it over to our first speaker, Ms. Penny Neferis. She's JetBlue's Director of Business Continuity and Disaster Response and Recovery. I met Penny about 10 years ago at a private public partnership event in Washington, D.C. And then I invited her down to speak at our PPP event when I was with the Florida Division of Emergency Management. Fast forward a couple years, in 2016, when the Pulse Nightclub shooting happened in Orlando, the first phone call I received was from Penny saying, "What can JetBlue do to help?" Orlando was one of the larger presence for JetBlue. And so between JetBlue, Uber, and Airbnb, we were able to provide assistance to the victims and their survivors, the victims' families and the survivors. And that became a best practice that was used a year later in the Las Vegas shooting as well. Last year, I had reached out to Penny when PSEMA was created, and I asked her to please join us and get involved. With the Hurricane Ian response, JetBlue was heavily involved in those discussions, and I am now happy to say that Penny has agreed to come on and serve with me as vice president for the new executive committee that is taking effect this month. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Penny, and I'm going to stop screen share, and I will let Penny give her presentation now.
Sure. So I don't have slides. I know Julie asked that I go into a little bit more about the two case studies that she just mentioned that we responded together for. But hi, everyone. It's great to be here. Thanks for joining this new organization, which I think is going to be really helpful to a lot of us in the private sector. Many of us are, like Julie said, I'll reach out and I'll offer support, whether it's to the FBI victim assistance or local district attorneys, whoever it is. If there's a shooting happening, our company always wants to be able to give back. And there are times though where I'm like, oh, I need a little help here. I'm a little stuck, and this serves that for us, kind of behind the scenes, and there's so many different people that can have different resources and connections, and vice versa. If I have empty planes flying into a crisis zones, I'm more than happy to take other people who can go in and help or help their companies come back quicker. So that's why we joined PSEMA. We've worked with Julie for so many years and is also a close friend now. That just having that network of extra folks who think crisis and we speak the same language has been really helpful. So she asked to share a little bit more on Pulse, but before that, I'll just share, when a crisis does happen within JetBlue, we look at it from a three-prong model. We call it the 3 C's. So our employees are all called crew members. And so we look at what impact does this crisis have on our crew members and how do we help them? The second response is around customers. What impact does this have to the operation? How can we help customers? What fee waivers can we do? Can we cap fares? Can we add more flights into this devastation? And then the third is community. How do we help the community recover? So our 3 C's, crew member, customer, and community. And, that model really did start after Pulse and after we started, just reaching out a little bit more on how we can help and what resources are most effective for folks that are in crisis. So when Pulse happened, I'll just dive into it a little bit more. June 12th, 2016, 49 people killed and 53 injured in the nightclub. Again, we have our huge training center down in Orlando. We also have our focus city. So that means pilots and flight attendants are based there. There's just a lot happening for us in Orlando. That Sunday morning, our CEO did put a call together to say, hey, how are we going to help? What are we going to do? And we activated our care response right away. We deployed teams on. I know some of our folks that saw Crystal on from our team immediately was jumping into action and helping and activating folks. And, Julie was able to put that connection together with us. We had no partnership at the time with Airbnb or Uber, and kind of bypassed all the teams and just said, we're going to work together and help. So I can provide flights for anyone that was impacted that needs to fly in. We flew in thousands of people. We had our care team members meeting folks at the gate. Uber was waiting them in baggage claim with a code saying, here's all your, if you need Uber for the duration you're here. And Airbnb was offering free housing. So, we met that immediate needs, that full circle to offer support. We did also have the opportunity to set up in the Family Assistance Center, which was really unique for us. And we were able to book and provide services to the families real time. And since then, we've been able to continue to offer that for other shooting events. We did have 47 of our crew members and business partners that were impacted. They either lost partners or children or close friends. So we were also supporting our staff at the same time. And then jumping into hurricanes, just to add a little more color to 2017, obviously was the roughest year for us. You know, we had Harvey, we had Florida getting slammed with Irma, and then Maria, where we had 468 crew members living on the island and trying to make positive contact with every single one of them. No power, no food, it's like there's no plan for this, so really, again, taking care of their immediate needs, getting them funds, getting them pay protected was really important. We learned a lot, set up a lot of structure based on our response from 17, and then Hurricane Ian hits. And so here's a smaller response, although we had 6,000 crew members in the path of the storm. It really obviously focused in the Fort Myers area where we had about 200 people. And one of the challenges we ran into was I can get a tanker of fuel. I can get a 40,000 gallon tanker, but that's not what I need. Like I need 1,000 gallons. Like I just need enough to get the folks who want to come into work to get fuel and, get them going. And joined a PSEMA call, said, hey guys, I need fuel, but I don't need a tanker. So in 24 hours, we had a box. I don't know what else to call it. It was like a tank that was a box that worked with the airport authority, was able to get it on airport property. And we had 1,000 gallons that was being provided by Swissport, which was, our fuelers that normally fuel planes, was fueling our crew members' cars. And we put out our alert system and said, hey, whoever wants to come for fuel, we have 10 gallons for each one of you. Here's, the time frame. And it was truly incredible. So, it worked really well. It was an extra, and everyone's like, how did Penny get 1,000 gallons? Like, how did that happen? I'm like, it's a long story. I'll fill you in later, but we just joined this new group. They're great. So that's my 2 cents. I don't know, Julie, if there's anything else you want me to capture, if there's any questions, happy to chat some more.
Yep. So I just said on the chat, anybody has questions, put it in, or we'll wait until the end. I know Penny may be button up on some time. So if you guys do have questions for Penny, I would also like to point out something I found very interesting in my conversations with JetBlue was that when disasters happen, they also have care teams that can go into shelters and assist. So I don't know, Penny, if you want to talk a little bit about how you've even brought in some of your overnight packs to make it a little easier for people to sleep in shelters. Because I think that's something that's unique in the private sector. We solve problems that maybe people don't even think about a private company could help with.
Sure. Yeah, so really also proud. We have a few hundred crew members that are trained by Red Cross in Red Cross shelter operations. New York City, might have been over 10 years ago, had put together a Ready When the Time Comes program, which allowed corporations in New York to go get their staff trained in Red Cross shelter operations. And so our teams have deployed to South Dakota, places we don't even fly to, Baton Rouge, and have worked the shelters. And again, we can bring in blankets and pillows plus our people, which is our best resource, and so every time they arrive at a shelter, it was pretty incredible because they're like, why do you people just know what to do? I'm like, we're operations, like that's what we do for a living, like we're constantly problem solving. So it was pretty awesome that we were able to go out and help in that capacity too. When we want to give back, we see something happening, how do we help? And so, we see what's playing out in Turkey. We don't fly there, but we're fundraising, internally just to give back. So it's part of our DNA. It's who we are and what we do. But yeah, thanks for raising that. And again, thanks to Crystal, who I know is on, who helps manage a lot of those programs.
So Rodney just posted a quick question regarding Hurricane Michael, which he is in the Florida Panhandle. And he said that, the largest challenge was getting people to believe it was going to happen. Has that been a challenge for you and JetBlue to help your employees recognizing that they may be in a path of a major disaster?
Yeah, great question. So we do a lot of promotion and hurricane communications, obviously before the storm is hitting, and we have meteorologists on hand, right? So we're like, no, these are our people telling us that this is going to happen. When they see their flights getting canceled, I would say our group is probably overly, more cautious than not, because they've been there, they've done it, and they see the operation shutting down. So they know this is pretty serious. If we're going to take hundreds of flights out of the system and move our planes out of harm's way, they know it's pretty serious. And so in those cases too, we'll offer for folks to be flown out confirmed with their families and get them out of harm's way as well. So it is pretty good. I mean, there always are a few who want to stick around, even if there's an evacuation order. And those are the folks we'll just track really closely, like give us all your information. We're going to check in with you, or please text us how you're doing. There's always a handful, but I would say the majority, like 97% of them are really good about, following orders.
Great. So I'm going to pause now. If anyone has any questions and you're currently muted, you're welcome to take yourself off of mute if you have any questions for Penny, or just any general comments, kind of what you've heard so far. We'll give it just a second before we move on. Okay. I am not seeing any other questions right now. So Ron, do you have a question?
I was just gonna ask, have you partnered with any other airlines, since you have certain routes and cities you fly into? Are there any other airlines that you are working to partner with in this effort? Because we'd love to have more in besides JetBlue on this.
Yeah, so it is a little bit, part of our DNA. It's who we are when it comes to helping. I would say in Pulse, what ended up happening is like, oh, JetBlue, well, if you're doing it now, I have to do it. So yeah, all of them came and played, which was nice. There are recent events that I've played out, and I have reached out to the carriers saying, hey, FYI, here's what we're offering. And some of them will jump in, some of them won't. So it really depends on the DNA and the culture of the company. I think it's just how we are wired. We started with 9/11 in our city, our industry under attack, and we took in like 80 stranded customers and set them up in a ballroom in a hotel. And that was, again, no plan. It was just who we were. And so that's carried. I will say I'm also here 24 years. I'm one of the founders. So, this is just the way we are. It's just the way we've been built.
It's a great way to give back. I really appreciate what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just as a plug, JetBlue does a lot of amazing things, nothing to do with disasters, but they have a whole backpack program they do for foster kids that I was asking Penny about one day. I mean, they're an amazing company. And I don't say that because she's just a founding company. In general, JetBlue is a great company. Rodney, I see you have a question and you'll probably need to unmute yourself. Sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. I had the pleasure of working with Julie for a number of years here in the state of Florida. We worked a lot of projects together, so she's kind of has a unique insight into what we experienced here. And going back to that question of getting people convinced, there's a book out called Collaborate or Perish, and I read that book, and it's true to form. If you don't collaborate with other organizations such as yours and others and do that way ahead, you don't want to exchange business cards at a disaster site. And that's always been the watchword in Florida. Florida's been one of the most prepared states in the union because we get hit so much. But I hope everybody will start to reach out through Julie's group, through you, through the others, and start talking about these things and look at similar processes that you've been through to kind of have a little playbook, because it ain't going to happen here. It's not a plan. And that's something we need to work through. So what you're doing, I think, is unbelievably good. I mean, it's an outstanding process. So I just want to say thank you.
Thanks, Rodney. I appreciate that. Okay, so if others have questions, please feel free to stick them in the chat. We'll get to them. And at the end, we'll also have some questions. And so now I'm going to shift over to Marianne Adams. She is the Emergency Management Director for OnStar. I don't think that Marianne's going to be able to join us. I'm going to actually share my screen in her presentation. So you guys will give me just 1 second. Okay, and everyone's able, I'm assuming everyone is able to see the presentation screen.
Hey, Julie, it's Marianne. Hi, everybody. I'm sorry I can't be on camera right now, but I want to thank Julie for pulling this all together. And I represent OnStar, which is the telematics unit in General Motors vehicles. And ever since Hurricanes Katrina and Rita, we've learned that we intersect with just most every disaster across North America where we're located. And joining PSEMA has been really helpful for me and our organization because I've now expanded my network of people that I know that we can turn to and that we may also be able to help. And so what I thought I'd do today is walk you through kind of what we do, because a lot of people are not familiar how OnStar intersects with disasters, but it's very unique. And, you know, it's good for me to provide information to everybody because you may be driving a General Motors vehicle and not realize the capability that you have in that vehicle. Okay, Julie, next slide. One of the things that we do track all of the disasters that we manage. We have a 24/7, 365 command center like most organizations, large organizations, and we're monitoring events daily, minute by minute, and we're actually gathering that information. We're able to geofence areas and route calls appropriately to our skilled advisors. And so I'm able to track all the people that we help and we know how we're helping them. And so we looked back historically ever since Katrina and Rita, and in the past 5 years alone, we've had 1.7 million members calling in from areas that were being impacted by a severe disaster at the time. So our footprint is not insignificant, and we're helping all types of people. We're helping, you know, the parents, moms and pops, and, you know, kids driving in vehicles, but we're also integrating with public safety who may have our vehicles, and that's the only way that they can connect during that disaster. So again, we say that life happens in the vehicle. And it does, and we've come across all types of ways that we're assisting during disasters. And the next slide. And specifically as it relates to Hurricane Ian, I think this graphic shows you how we are able to connect and the types of calls that we were getting, or the number of calls that we were getting the day after Ian hit. So we have this real life map that it shows all of our calls coming in from all across North America. And I can zoom into this map. I can see who's calling. I can go listen to that call and understand it very quickly. But I wanted to compare it to the NASA imagery even the day after in terms of where power was accessible. So that was 2 days after, but you can see the day after we were getting a number of calls from the Cape Coral and the Fort Myers area. And I'll go through exactly what people were calling for. And the next slide. One of the things that I wanted to share with everybody, while we probably get between 3,000 and 4,000 calls a day from the state of Florida. And we do have what we call the blue button team, and those are advisors that are taking calls for navigation help, helping me find a hotel room, or other non-urgent things. But we do have 220 dedicated emergency certified advisors that are specifically dedicated to those true urgent calls. And they are actually skilled in emergency medical, fire, and police dispatch training. And we are an EMD accredited center of excellence certified by the International Academies of Emergency Dispatch. So as you know, during disasters, first responders can be delayed because they can't go out because it's too dangerous for them to go out, or because they've got an abundance of calls coming in and, you know, they've got to really triage them and do the most urgent ones first. So our emergency advisors can actually deliver that medical instruction or help them with the customer's needs until first responders can get there. And the next slide, Julie, thanks. And as Penny was indicating, we also do a lot of messaging to let people know that they need to be prepared. And we actually do this throughout the year, depending on the specific region. We will highlight the most likely event that can happen in their region, and we'll actually let them know that they should be prepared, and here's what you need to do. And then we'll also remind them that we're there to help them, and then how we can help them as well. So we are continuing this message to our customers, and we have millions of customers that we're trying to help from a preparedness perspective. And here are the ways that we help. So basically, we provide a central point of contact for people during disasters. As we know, a lot of people are not prepared. People are calling us for information. They want to know, what is the weather? Is this a tornado? Should I take shelter? Or can I keep driving? They want situational information, like, did I just feel an earthquake? What's going on? And so those are calls that we handle regularly, and our command center team is actually aggregating that information and pushing out the most important information to our advisors, so that they're not having to, scour the internet to see what's going on. And a lot of what we do is navigation, even though we all have a, built-in navigation into our cell phones and into our vehicles. There are people that are caught in situations on the road and they need evacuation help, and so we will help them. We provide turn-by-turn routes. We can download them down to the vehicle, and there's something that we do a lot during disasters, and I call that chaperoned routing or advisor guided routing, and it's really stay with me. People do not feel safe. They're running into flooded road after flooded road, or trees down on the road. They're now maybe in an unsafe area, and they want us to stay with them. So we will actually stay with that customer on the call until we can get them to a safe location. And a lot of what we do during disasters is helping to find those scarce resources. And we know that fuel can be in short supply during disasters. And while it's very hard to find that information, and there is crowdsourcing information available, we actually do what I call smile and dial, and we'll make sure and call ahead before sending a customer to a gas station to make sure that that gas station is operational, one, and has fuel too. People are always looking for hotel rooms. As you know, they can get, booked up very quickly during an evacuation. So we're helping to find hotel rooms. And then for those people that don't listen and they're trying to evacuate at the last minute, we're helping them to find and guide them to that shelter of last resort. And then post the disaster, people are looking for where they can buy food, where they can get water, where they can get a generator. And sometimes even their prescription medications, what drugstores are open and operating. So we will help them with those needs as well, in terms of routing them to a place that they can get what they need. And a big thing that we did during Hurricane Ian is we did a lot of connectivity. Because of our external facing antenna on the vehicle, we tend to have a higher likelihood of our connection working where your cell phone may not work. So we will provide Wi-Fi data into the vehicle, which can support up to 7 devices. And that was actually one of our largest call volumes during Hurricane Ian, as you saw and know, with the power outages. So we're able to support people so that they can do the communications themselves. And if they don't have a device that they can connect to the vehicle, our advisors will actually act like the old public telephone switching companies. And you can call us and we will connect you to whoever you need to be connected to. And we can either stay on the line with you, just in case you're having a poor connection, and you need to make more calls, or we can drop off the call and let you continue your conversation with whoever you need to. And then, as I talked about, from an emergency perspective, we do have our emergency advisors that are there to provide that medical and safety instruction. We do welfare checks because people get disconnected, so we can try and locate people for our customers. We do provide roadside assistance as well. And then we link to public safety in terms of making sure that they're aware of what's going on. And if we need first response out there, we give them location and we stay on the line until first responders can get there. Okay, next slide, Julie. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that General Motors is coming out with or they've established a new company called GM Energy, and it's all focused on electrifying our vehicles and providing energy. And so this will be an opportunity to provide backup energy or backup power to your home through the batteries that are located in our vehicle. And I think that's it. I just want everybody to know that we're a great partner of public safety. We work very closely with them to create, great relationships because we're relying on them, and we want them to help our customers as well. So we work hand in hand with them. And, again, just the different things that we can do from an OnStar perspective has amazed me over the years. And we pretty much intersect with most disasters that are happening every day. And that is it.
Thank you, Marianne. I appreciate it. I met Marianne again, probably about a decade ago at a couple of our events with Florida Emergency Management. And she is, I think Marianne was probably the third person I told when I decided that PSEMA is something we should try to launch. So I'm very appreciative. Marianne's also serving on our new executive committee. She's the secretary. And so it's an honor to be able to serve with two other amazing women on our new executive committee. I'm going to pause here and see if anybody has any questions for Marianne, or if you have any in the chat, I'll check that as well. But I'll just see if anybody has any questions. Judy, I see you had a comment. I don't know if you want to ask that question or I can read it out loud.
I can read the question here. It says, Ford recently announced that they won't include an AM radio in some models of new cars. Will OnStar offer emergency radio, typically offered on AM stations, to drivers whether they are subscribers or not? That's a good question. I can find that out in terms of where we're going. We certainly know that the emergency radio is, should be available to everybody. And the question is, how can they do it? Can it be done through a different mechanism with an app in the infotainment unit? And that's what they might be moving toward, but I'm not sure. But I can check with our engineers and get back to you, Judy.
And Marianne, I had seen an article where actually Craig Fugate commented, because I guess it's some of the EV cars that they're really moving away from having a traditional radio such as an AM, and so Craig has an op-ed. So I'll find that and send it over as well about that impact, because during disasters, AM is a critical lifeline for people as well. So
yeah, and it's interesting that you asked that question today, because we are all inputting the needs that we have from a digital transformation with EV vehicles. So that is one that I will submit to make sure that we're including that important, capability within the vehicles in some manner. So thank you, Judy, for bringing that up.
Perfect. Any other questions for Marianne? Okay, so we're going to transition now over to Persia Payne Hurley. So I met Persia again about 10 or 12 years ago. And at one point, we both flew from North Carolina and Florida all the way to Hawaii to speak on a public-private partnership event in Hawaii. I won't complain, except that I was on the ground for less than 48 hours and not enough time to enjoy Hawaii, but it was great to be able to be there with Persia. And so I've asked Persia, she joined our advisory board for PSEMA just last month, actually. And I just asked her, I wanted her to come in and talk about North Carolina's program is definitely one that's put on a pedestal as being one of the best public-private partnership programs within a state. And so I wanted Persia to talk a little bit about her program and about how her partners have come on and worked during the events, the hurricanes, particularly like 17 and 18 were very active seasons for that East Coast. And then, but also any events that you've had over the last couple of years as well. But also I think it ties in with OnStar, because I know Persia sits on one of the OnStar boards with Mary Ann, so maybe you can talk a little bit about that partnership, and also other partnerships with, some of the big companies. I think it's UPS that you do tracking and seeing where roads are open and closed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Persia and let her go. And if you guys have questions, feel free to stick them in the chat and I'll read them as they come in or when we get to the end. So take it away, Persia.
Hey, good morning, you guys. Good afternoon. It's afternoon already, right? Thanks so much, Julie, for allowing me the time to talk to the group here and would really say hello to a lot of folks that are on this call that are my partners and have been for many, many years. As Julie mentioned, I am a proud member of the OnStar Public Safety Advisory Council. Mary Ann put in a good word for me, y'all, because I don't think anybody at OnStar knew me, but they gave me a chance to speak my piece over there and help them and let them help us. So I also chair the All Hazards Consortium State Private Sector Liaison Committee, and I mentor a number of state liaisons like me, because I'll remind this group that even as of right now, there is no formal training for what we do, what folks like me do. So we talk a lot to each other and we connect and we talk regularly, just trying to share ideas. So that was very kind what Julie said. As far as our program, we are very proud of it in North Carolina. And Julie, I'm sorry you missed the Blue Hawaiis. That was good times. But as I said, I think that we in North Carolina, we're enjoying a great little period of time here regarding our private program that's expanded under the pressure of multiple disasters. And I think that the success that we've had is primarily due to amplification of our messaging and our program from partners that are on this webinar, companies that have been with me and took a chance on me from the beginning. So the word of mouth that they have spread around in terms of how we operate, I think that's been a real key for us, because we did something different with our focus. I think here we embraced the mission of supporting the continuation of business, or the resumption of business operations as quickly as possible following an event. We tried to focus on that because we saw that the best way to stabilize communities and to restore normalcy was to defend against business interruptions. Many of you on the call, I'm sure, have heard me talk about this symbiotic relationship between businesses and communities. And so focusing on that connection, I think was a great decision here. And so I became a warrior for private partnerships. And those first 100 or so businesses and those leaders that saw our convention joined what was then a one-woman show, my one-woman show in 2014. And they taught me what businesses needed. They tried to teach me what was going to be the best way to help businesses avoid interruptions and to go back to normal. And I listened to that. And at the time, there was very little training, just like now, for someone in my position. And I really feel like, God put me in the right place at the right time and gave me a bit of tenacity. So I also had great supportive leadership. Many of you on the call will probably know my former director, Mike Sprayberry, who took a chance on, this person that didn't have any emergency management background. That was me, but was pretty good at, making dots connect and, seeing patterns, being able to look at processes and to hammer out partnerships. So I was able to act on suggestions from private sector, make some changes where we needed them here, put some corrective action plans in actual action, be creative, innovative, and look at that whole community approach, but also to help businesses coordinate with each other, provide a place for private sector to push things on loan or at cost or at a discount or for donations. So this private sector donations management thing that I didn't mean to volunteer for, but I kind of did, in our state, just to try to help make things smoother. So bottom line for us, I think, was we try to treat the private sector like any other state agency partner. and that's something now that's woven into this framework in North Carolina and the DEOC, along with this other program that I run, to try to really make the private sector part of the state EOC. So I also I administer our reentry certification program. I'm sure y'all have heard of that, where we certify businesses to operate and move in restricted areas, to come back in after evacuations, to operate during curfews, to keep businesses going. That's the heart of what we try to do. So learning how to service those things on the ground, and we do, with a direct connection to local law enforcement, that was a bit of a new thing. And it has been helpful because we can ensure a smooth operation with folks on the ground. So if you're trying to move things around the state, you're not talking from county to county, but statewide. And if you need service, you're talking to, one group, in the BEOC. So those things that we've done to try to make things simple, I think have helped us to be successful, and the partners all around that have helped me to grow into what they needed me to be. That's honestly what I believe. Thankfully, in 2020, James Wong joined me, amazing guy. And his hard work has allowed me to take a step back to look at the future of what this program can be. What else can we do? I see unique partnerships from across state agencies that I think will be key for private and public in the future. And we just want to keep pushing the envelope, Julie. I mean, that's what that's what I'm looking for. So PSEMA, I think, is another wonderful next step, in this still emerging slice of emergency management, and it's exciting. So I think that there's nothing but good that can come of it. As far as past disasters and hurricanes that we have done so many different things, I think probably one of the most, I could pick so many stories, but Julie mentioned UPS. We looked at some things that UPS could do, not only for themselves, what they were doing already for themselves, and how that could benefit other companies and other communities. And we call that program Eyes on the Ground. And what do I mean by that? Well, example, in North Carolina, there's about 1,000 UPS drivers on the road in any given day. I'm sure many more in Florida and states that are larger. And those guys are using, amazing routing systems to maintain their dispatch of where their trucks are and where they're going. And they go into neighborhoods routinely, and they know these areas, they know the businesses. They know when something's wrong, something's off, when water's too high, they understand that. And radioing back that information to their own hub, I realized that very much like we do in the military, I've retired from there, to have scouts looking out at what's going on can lead to an early assessment of what we see in terms of damages. So I looked at that as an opportunity to pull that information in terms of information sharing, because we believe in a two-way information sharing situation here, that the UPS guys could be our eyes on the ground to tell us things like high water, where it shouldn't be, downed water or down power lines, roads that are collapsed or otherwise damaged. And we could get a heads up on that. At the same time, as long as it was safe for them to drive, they had reentry certification from us, so they could keep on delivering as long as it was safe to do so. So that kind of win-win, and I think that's key, finding capabilities on both sides and finding the win-win. So we've done that a number of times. And I guess the most unique thing I think we've done is probably the airdrop. Hurricane Florence, we did a true cross-sector coordination, and that would be, it was the North Carolina Air Boss, otherwise known as North Carolina Air National Guard. But during disasters in North Carolina Air National Guard has air superiority, and we call them the Air Boss. So this shelter in a small little town called Burgaw, surrounded by water and no one could get to that. This was an end-of-life shelter. There were about 30 people there, patients, caregivers, and the caregivers had brought their children because of this evacuation. So about 30 people total. And they did not have enough supplies to continue, did not anticipate getting cut off by water, and no one could get to them with medical supplies or with just basic life supplies. And our partners who were in the BEOC at the time, and it was a number of folks, North Carolina Long-Term Care Association was there. Walmart was there in person. There were multiple banks, and there were multiple other critical infrastructure, people from telecom, energy, Duke, everyone was there, probably about 40 private folks. But looking at what that shelter needed in particular when they did their resource request to the county and into the state, those partners in the BEOC pulled that stuff out of what they had and said, we can build that package that this shelter needs. Then, of course, the question became, how do we get it there? So I run down the hall, talk to North Carolina Air Boss, and we coordinated an airdrop. And this would have been a helicopter airdrop. It was a middle school where the shelter was. So coordinating those companies with those resources out to RDU at this point, and coordinating that with the North Carolina Air Boss for the drop for that shelter was critical for them and allowed them to continue on 10 more days in that shelter while the water receded. So, I mean, when I think of cross-sector coordination, that's what I think about. So I'm going to stop there, Julie, and take some questions, and I hope I gave a good example there. But more than anything, I really want to hear what you guys think, what else can states do? I know I love to push the envelope, so I'm willing to listen.
Let's see if anybody has any questions for Persia. And our next presentation is going to be Abby Browning with California OES, and so another state perspective as well. So I have not seen questions in the chat, but if somebody else does have a question, feel free to jump in now, or at the end, we'll open it up after Abby's presentation, and we can also do some questions then too.
Can I say something really quick?
Sure.
I had never heard of this organization, and while this has been going on, I joined because of what I've heard, the quality of the people who belong and the number of the people in this webinar. So excellent and good job, and hello to everyone.
Thank you, Jordan. So Jordan, would you mind telling everyone where you're from? What organization are you with? Sorry.
That's okay. I am an emergency manager. I'm an AEM. I was an emergency manager for a faith-based community. I'm working on my dissertation in Homeland Security. I work for a college that's virtual, so we really don't need a lot of preparedness. We do virtually, but not really physically. I've worked for FEMA as a PDMG. So, and I'm sort of slowly starting my own business for those at the low end of the socioeconomic scale as to how to be prepared when you're a mom and pop, and how to respond, we have a larger vulnerable population. I'm located in Iowa. I am not from Iowa. I'm from New York and California.
Well, welcome, Jordan. This is perfect because a big focus of PSEMA is exactly what you just described. It is those small and medium-sized business. I say often, corporations get it. They understand, they have teams, but it's those mom and pops that we want to focus on and help them build out resilient businesses, because they're the fabric of a community and we need to get them back up and operating as fast as possible as well. So welcome to PSEMA. I would love to chat with you later. I'll send you an email, but would love to chat about preparedness and small business. We really focused on that when I was in Florida, and also on some of those lower socioeconomic communities as well. So welcome. I'm happy you've enjoyed the discussion today, and so welcome to PSEMA.
Thank you.
About that.
I'd be happy to help in any way to make PSEMA more well known, so that emergency management folks and just folks in general know that it's out there and what it's doing.
That's great. I love it. I will reach out to you when we get off this call then.
All right, awesome.
Thank you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Abby Browning. Like I said, she is the public-private coordinator, BEOC coordinator for California. Thank you, Abby, for joining. I know, so Abby joined in 2015 is when she went to work for California. And as we've all been seeing in the media, the last month or so is definitely been a wet one for California. So appreciate you being on. I asked Abby if she wanted to talk about some of the wildfires that happened a few years ago that were so devastating, but it might be more important for her to talk about what's going on now, and are there ways that we can help California in what you guys might need at this point. So I'm going to turn it over to Abby.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so I am in California. I'm with the Cal OES, and it's raining. It's raining. I just came from a briefing from our state climatologist, and the entire state's covered. And we have another couple atmospheric rivers coming in later this week. So it's so much water. I've told people, whoever's out there praying for water, they need to just stop. Because we're good right now. But so what I do here at Cal OES is similar to what Persia does. And honestly, I could just repeat everything she said. There is no training for positions like myself or Persia's in all of our states. However, I think that's kind of a good thing. Simply because our states are made up of so many different communities and different people, and the government in general is supposed to reflect the communities that you serve, and so the needs and the concerns of people in North Carolina are different than the needs and concerns of people in California. And so one of the things that is really good about our positions is that we do have the ability to be flexible and we can move. And that's why I really like public-private partnerships because of that flexibility. Private sector, they can turn on a dime. They can move things a lot faster than the government does. We have a lot of red tape. When we're spending taxpayer dollars, it's a little bit of a question as to, are you doing it right? Is it the best way to go? But sometimes we have to move quick, and private sector can do that, and they are absolutely amazing. I also take the same line that Persia does, that our number one goal here, obviously apart from life safety and protection, is getting businesses up and running. Staying out of the way. As long as a business can run and do what they need, we want the grocery stores open. We want the gas stations open. We want all of those things so people can have some sort of normalcy in their lives. If you can go to work, you can buy your own food, you can provide for your families, you can do all those things. I don't know anyone that would rather stay at a shelter and stand in line for a meal, even though it's a free meal, than go home and choose what they can fix for their family for dinner. And so our goal is to get that economy moving and doing that kind of thing after any of our disasters. And so we work very closely with the different associations in California and our counties. That's one thing that we also have that's a bit different, is our geographic size. We're very, very big. And so what is needed in Los Angeles County is totally different than what is needed, say, up in Sierra County. And so I strongly encourage our counties to have strong private sector relationships, private-public partnerships to move those things. But then sometimes the state needs to step in and support them. We have, most of the time, if you had asked me this a month ago, I would have said most of our disasters are no notice events, like fires. They just kind of crop up and boom, there they are, or an earthquake. But we are changing. I think we got a little jealous of the East Coast getting all those hurricanes and stuff. And so now we're getting all these atmospheric rivers. And so we are utilizing our public-private partnerships to not only prepare for these events, but to prepare their communities. And so we host all of these calls to push out messaging. So we're all singing from the same song sheet. We're all on the same page. Do not go on roads that are closed. They're floods. This is what happens when the water breaks. This is what happens when you have this issue. And we're utilizing our public-private partnerships and our private sector folks to get out the same message that government is pushing out, not only to their employees, but also to their customers as they go along. And then we do, on occasion, do some really cool things during this event right now. My team down in the BOC is working on coordinating a lot of our essential services deliveries into the mountains where there's heavy snow and issues trying to get specifically propane in. We don't have a statewide reentry program because all of the road closures are done on the local level and they're done by regional folks. And so even if I did issue something, nobody would abide by it. So what we do is we coordinate that individually. So right now, we have propane deliveries that are going into the San Bernardino Mountains up into Lake Arrowhead, where there was a lot of heavy snow. And we are coordinating with Caltrans and with CHP and the local sheriffs on the ground to assure that these are essential services. We got to get them through. This is what's going on, and taking in driver safety into account. And we are also coordinating with like UPS and FedEx to, instead of delivering to homes, they're doing a massive drop at one of the shelter locations so people can come to pick up their own deliveries, to be concerned with driver safety, but also it's also a way to get people to come to the evacuation points and pick up other resources that they might be available for them, you know, boxes of food or water or things like that. So we're coordinating that. But one of the really cool things, so let me tell you what just went down. This San Bernardino thing. It was last week. The Lake Arrowhead. I'm sure you saw. Well, maybe you didn't. But it was all over the news. There were students stuck up there because there was a lot of skiing and everything, and it just kind of dumped. And it was bunches and bunches of feet of snow, and people were unable to get out. People were unable to do this. The food bank that was up there with the county went around and gave out boxes of food, but the snow just kept coming and just kept coming. And so the county, because they're using it as emergency services, were able to put in procurement to get food replenished for the food bank to continue this operation. But because it's government and because we take a long time, there was a 6-day gap of when they had the food and when they didn't have the food. And so what we did was we reached out to our Grocers Association in California and said, we got this gap. This is what they need. And it was basically refilling the food bank to last for 6 days until this new wave of food that was ordered could come in. And within 12 hours, they had filled the entire thing. It was so quickly that our emergency services folks weren't exactly prepared. Like, whoa, they didn't realize they were going to get all these truckloads of food coming in within 12 hours. And they did. Luckily, we moved fast to get it on. But it's that kind of thing. I don't ask for donations often. I'm of the mindset where California, we can pay for this. We can take care of our own when we need to. But there are some situations where we need that help. And our partnership with the Grocers Association, they just jumped, and we're excited to do that. Another really cool story from a fire that was somewhat similar a few years ago. We have a veterans home that is for severely disabled or elderly veterans that need 24/7 taken care of. And the fire was coming right towards them. And they were evacuated. So they evacuated, they moved to a new space, they did all this stuff. Well, then the fire turned real fast. They got evacuated again. And that was a quick evacuation, and they did not pick up all their supplies. And we were struggling. How do we get this? How do we get that? We needed to get essential supplies that were like basically a bunch of adult diapers and other items that are over the counter but are needed in homes like that. And we could not figure out how to get it there within 2 hours. We needed it there bad. And I started calling around, and I was ready to just take the credit card and go load up and all this stuff. The senior vice president of Walmart for California was about 2 hours away. He got in his truck and loaded up from Sam's Club and Walmart and went and dropped it off himself. I mean, it was amazing that they just, okay, we'll do it. And those are examples of them stepping in to do things that we cannot do. However, we often help them as well. That same fire, I got a call in the middle of the night from Kaiser Permanente, which is one of I think it's on the East Coast as well, but it's a massive hospital system in California and out here on the West Coast. And they said, Abby, the fire's coming close. And I'm like, coming close to what? Need a little bit more. Their data center. The fire line was a mile away from their data center. Now, this isn't, they do have backup, but the main data center for all of California. And I'm like, does anybody know this? How come I'm the only one that knows this? And so luckily I was able to go to the incident commander right on the field. I was able to go to CAL FIRE. I was able to go to them and I said, this building right here, this is their data center. And it is critical infrastructure. And so we were able to protect that, put that in there for that protection, knowing what that was. And ever since that event, the health and medicals, that all has been fed into our critical infrastructure protection team so we know where this is. That shouldn't have been a gap, but it was a gap. So things like that we can do. I could go on and on about these stories. When I started here, it was a very small BOC operation, and they brought me in. I, much like Persia, was not an emergency manager. I come from the private sector, and the opportunities, there's just so many. And we want to encourage our private sector, as well as all of our nonprofits, to actively participate, not only in the response and the recovery, but also in the preparedness messages as well. So it's 24/7, 365 that we're working with everyone. My position is up at the executive level. I report to the director. I'm a governor's appointee. And the reason that being is to show our communities, our nonprofits and our private sector, that they are just as important as Caltrans, as CAL FIRE, as everyone else. They have a seat at the table, and we want to encourage their participation. So having said that, I could keep going, but I'm going to stop now. But happy to take any questions. And thank you for allowing me to represent West Coast on this call.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate you being able to jump on the call. So we are a couple minutes over 1, but we'll go ahead and stay on. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to let me, jump in now and ask those questions, or put them in a chat, and I'll be happy to read them out loud for anyone that has them. Or, after this is over, if you're looking for anyone that was on here. Oh, Ron, I see you came off camera. I'll let you. Do you have a question?
No question. I just thought it was very informative. A lot of new information and points that I didn't know were connected already. So I think this will help evolve everything in terms of emergency management. And I think you're doing a great job with this. So I appreciate this call very much.
Thank you, Ron. I appreciate you being on. For awareness, this has been recorded, and we will be posting it on our website, and then under the webinars, which is under Engage on the PSEMA website. So we will also have others that will be sending it out. I had a professor who wanted to share with his students. However, they're on spring break, so it'll work out that he'll be able to share this now. But we will also push that link out to everyone that registered, so that you can, for those who weren't able to attend. If anyone has any other thoughts or questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to talk with you about PSEMA. This is definitely the year that I see PSEMA really taking off and growing, and it's going to be all of your involvement. If you have thoughts on future conversations that you think we should do a webinar series on, please let me know. Like I mentioned at the beginning, April will be supply chain, because it is Supply Chain Awareness Month. And then in May's webinar, we'll be focused on business preparedness, getting ready for hurricane season. Although for the business community, it is disasters 365 days a year that could impact everything from man-made into those natural disasters that are out there. So with that, I will, unless anyone has any questions now, I'll just thank everyone for being here. And just remember, disasters happen, be resilient, When you think of a rubber band, when you pick up a rubber band, think about that you need to be resilient so your business can come back should something happen. So I appreciate everyone being on and have a wonderful rest of your day.